Hello everyone, my name is Reggina Onggatta and my registration number is 2705079. I am from University of Sumatera Utara, majoring in English Literature. Today, I would like to explain about neurolinguistics and cases related to neurolinguistics. But before that, do you all must be curious about how and where our brains store our knowledge of the languages that we speak, understand, read, and write, and what happens in our brains as we acquire that knowledge, and what happens as we use it in our daily lives? Well, let's hear my explanation about neurolinguistics. Neurolinguistics studies the relation of language and communication to different aspects of brain functions. In other words, it tries to explore how the brain understands and produces language and communication. This involves attempting to combine neurological or neurophysiological theory, which is how the brain is structured and how it functions, with linguistics theory, which is how the language is structured and how it functions. Neurolinguistics has a very close relationship to psycholinguistics but focuses more on studies of the brain. Studies of languages and communication after brain damage are perhaps the most common type of neurolinguistics studies. The interdisciplinary character of neurolinguistics field. Many disciplines dealing with neurolinguistics provide energy and inspiration to this field. They introduce many different kinds of data, theories, and models of research. So, which disciplines have to be taken into account in neurolinguistics field? The answer is brain and language states that its interdisciplinary focus includes the fields of linguistics, neuroanatomy, neurology, neurophysiology, philosophy, psychology, physiatry, speech and pathology, and computer science. These disciplines may be the ones most involved in neurolinguistics, but several other disciplines are also highly relevant and having contributed to theories, methods, and findings in neurolinguistics. They include neurobiology, anthropology, chemistry, cognitive science, and artificial intelligence. Thus, the humanities and medical, natural, and social sciences are, as well as technology, are all represented in this neurolinguistics field. After explaining about neurolinguistics and its interdisciplinary, now we move to the different views on the relationship between brain and language. Do you know that a number of different views about the relationship between brain and language have existed and still do? Here are some of those that have had a considerable influence. First, localism. Localism tries to find locations or centers in the brain for different language functions. Localism claims that different higher functions are localized in different centers of the brain, mainly in the cortex. 2. Associationism. Associationism places language functions in the connection between different areas of the brain, making it possible to associate, for example, perceptions of different senses with words and or concepts. 3. Dynamic localization of function assumes that functional systems of localized subfunctions perform language functions. Such systems are dynamic, thus they can be reorganized during language development or after brain damage. 4. Holistic. Holistic theory considers many language functions to be handled by large parts of the brain working together. 5. Hierarchical or evolution-based. Evolution-based theories stress the relationship between how the brain and language evolve over time in different species, how they develop in children, and how adults perform language functions. 6. Unitarism and equipotentially. Other terms that are used for one unitary function of the brain are unitarism, the view that the soul is one and cannot be divided, and equipotentially, which means that all parts of the cortex have the same functional potential and the size of a brain lesion determines the extent of the aphasia, which is mass effect. Next, the central questions of neurolinguistics. One of the central questions of neurolinguistics is what happens to language and communication after brain damage of different types. The first question above occupies a special place in neurolinguistics. Here are some cases related to neurolinguistics. First, aphasia. Aphasia is defined as language loss due to brain damage. People who have difficulties speaking or understanding language because of brain damage are not like children. Using language involves many different kinds of knowledge and skill. People with aphasia have different combinations of things that they can still do in an adult-like way and things that they now do clumsily or not at all. In fact, we can see different profiles of spared and impaired of linguistic abilities across different people with aphasia. 2. Dyslexia and stuttering. what about dyslexia and children who have trouble learning to talk even though they can hear normally? Why do some people have reading difficulties? Research suggests that dyslexics have trouble processing the sounds of language and have difficulty related the printed words to sounds. Genetic differences and genetically based brain differences have been found in family with dyslexia and developmental language disorders, and research in this area is helping us to understand how genes act in setting up the inertial wiring in all of our brains, and there is a solid evidence that appropriate language-based therapy is effective for children with developmental disorders of reading a language, including stuttering. Furthermore, there is another case of neurolinguistics field, which is reading and writing from neurolinguistics perspective. Reading and writing are very interesting in several ways. If you look at language and communication from the evolutionary point of view, the use of written language is a learned ability secondary to spoken language. The relationship between speech and writing differs from ideographic, syllabic, and alphabetical writing systems. The reason for our interest in the ability to read and write is the fact that many people have problems acquiring these skills. Dyslexia, or more general reading and writing difficulties, pose a major problem for education in a society that relies on written communication more and more. Understanding the relationship between the processes used for speech and writing and how reading and writing can be disturbed or favored is very important for neurolinguistics case. There are several possible disorders or disturbances that can affect the processes. For instance, there are patients who can use letter-by-letter reading. In this case, both the whole word reading rote and the grapheme phoneme conversion rote seems to be blocked. Some patients depend on grapheme phoneme conversions for reading, is they read by sounding out the words and then listening to themselves. Such patients have problems reading very long words and words with irregular spelling, since these words are hard to sound out by the grapheme phoneme conversion alone. They do not have access to the whole word reading. This type of acquired dyslexia is called surface dyslexia. However, other patients depend on using whole word reading because they are unable to sound out words. They cannot read new, unfamiliar words or non-words, for example, phonologically regular but non-existent sound combination. And they also have problems reading short in syncagrammatic or functions words such as and, to, that. This type of acquired dyslexia is called phonological dyslexia. Deep dyslexia is closely related to phonological dyslexia. People with deep dyslexia make the following kinds of mistakes when they read, in addition to being unable to read new words and non-words. First, visual errors. A visual similar word is substituted. For example, cat becomes cat. 2. Semantics errors. A semantic substitution is made. For example, cat becomes dog. 3. Visual plus semantic errors. For example, pivot becomes pilot and then airplane. And then 4. Derivation errors. For example, lovely becomes loving. And then the last one, exchanges of functions words. For example, and becomes on. For these patients, concrete words with reference that are easy to visualize are easier to read than abstract nouns. Looking at developmental dyslexias from a neurolinguistics perspective means that the focus is on treating them in the same way as neurolinguistics disorders. There is an interest in finding areas of the brain that are involved in the reading and writing processes and localizing and understanding the functional system and sub-processes involved. Reading and writing problems are seen as symptoms among other linguistic and non-linguistic symptoms rather than a specific phenomenon. This means that they can be viewed in the light of a complex whole, for example, heredity, environment, and development. However, there is a major difference between our knowledge of acquired and developmental dyslexias, in that acquired dyslexias occur when there is a non-neurological disorder, whereas the cause of developmental dyslexias is less well known. It is possible that the cognitive basis for dyslexia cannot be specific, since reading is an acquired rather than an innate behavior. But the question is whether there is one more general underlying factor or several different ones is still important. important. There are differences between reading disorders in different individuals. The differences can be explained with reference to their relation to other cognitive problems such as phoneme discrimination, object naming, and etc. Alternatively, they also might be explained with reference to different subcomponents of reading's process as with acquired dyslexias. However, it is claimed that one should be cautious in applying models of acquired dyslexias in this context, since developmental dyslexias tend to be associated with broader cognitive disorders. Theories of the normal development of reading have to be considered and may be more relevant than models of word recognition. Interaction neurolinguistics and other fields. Neurolinguistics is closely related to psycholinguistics, which seeks to elucidate the cognitive problems of language by employing the traditional techniques of experimental psychology. Today, psycholinguistics and neurolinguistics theories often inform one another, and there is much collaboration between the two fields. Neurolinguistics research is carried out in all major areas of linguistics. The main linguistic subfields and how neurolinguistics address them are given in the table. Well, this is all for my explanation. Thank you and see you!